Did arsenic kill Napoleon? History's most mysterious death. Napoleon Bonaparte, one of the most powerful men in history, died alone on a tiny island. The official cause? Stomach cancer. But decades later, scientists tested a lock of his hair. And what they found changed everything. Arsenic, 100 times the normal level. Was it poison? Who did it? Or was it just a deadly accident? What do you think? Could the Emperor of France have been killed by something inside his own bedroom? Here's the wild part. Arsenic wasn't just in his hair. For centuries, it's been hiding in plain sight, in food, in paint, even in medicine. Sometimes it saved lives. More often, it ended them. In this video, we'll uncover the deadly double life of arsenic, the Victorian love story that ended in execution, the killer hidden in your great-grandmother's wallpaper, and how a poison from the past is still showing up in our water and food today. So, if you love strange history, true crime, and science with a dark twist, stick around. And hey, if this topic already has you hooked, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a fire emoji in the comments. Let's start with the death that shook the world, and may have been murder all along. Have you ever done something dangerous because you believed it was love? Her name was Mary. Young, kind, and forever scarred by smallpox. In Victorian England, that meant she was no longer seen as marriageable. And back then, a woman without a husband? Her future was grim. But Mary's father, Mr. Blandy, adored her. To help her find a decent suitor, he offered a massive dowry, £10,000, a fortune at the time. Enter Captain Cranstoun, charming, polished, and, let's be honest, deeply opportunistic. He wasn't after love. He was after the money. When Mr. Blandy refused to approve the marriage, Cranstoun gave Mary a white powder. "Slip this into your father's porridge," he said. "It'll change his heart." She did. Within days, her father was in agony. He vomited violently, lost his teeth, passed blood. And then, he died. That powder was arsenic. Mary was arrested. At trial, she insisted she thought it was a love potion. But the jury didn't believe her. In 1752, she was publicly hanged, then taken straight to a dissection room for medical study. It's one of the most haunting cases in British legal history. And here's what I keep thinking about. Mary wasn't evil. She was desperate. She wanted love, safety, a future. But she trusted the wrong man. And in the end, it wasn't just her father who paid the price. Arsenic didn't just poison a body, it poisoned hope. Now I have to ask you, if a father could be murdered with porridge, what else might be hiding in our everyday lives? Because in the next part of our journey, we're stepping into Victorian homes, where danger wasn't in the food, it was on the walls. Let me ask you something. Would you decorate your baby's room with poison? Sounds absurd, right? But in the 1800s, families across Europe did exactly that, without even knowing it. One of the most fashionable colors of the Victorian era was a deep emerald green. Rich, elegant, vibrant, and laced with arsenic. The color came from a pigment called Scheele's green, made with copper arsenite. It was used in everything: wallpaper, curtains, even children's toys. But here's the terrifying part. In damp environments, that arsenic didn't stay put. It slowly released as a toxic gas, especially when mold or moisture hit the walls. People began falling sick. Children vomited uncontrollably. Women grew weak and pale. Entire families withered away, while sitting in what they thought were beautiful, well-decorated rooms. One heartbreaking case in 1862. A 3-year-old girl died after spending months in a nursery lined with bright green wallpaper. There was no infection, no visible cause, just a room that slowly killed her. And when doctors began sounding the alarm, manufacturers laughed. "How can something so pretty be dangerous?" they said. It took years, for the truth to be accepted. By then, countless lives had already been lost. And here's the part that really gets to me. The walls people trusted to protect their families were silently hurting them. It's a quiet lesson that still matters today. Not everything dangerous comes with a warning sign. Sometimes it's disguised as luxury. Sometimes it smells like fresh paint. Let me ask you one more thing. If arsenic could hide in wallpaper, what happens when it hides in something even more personal, like your body? In the next chapter, arsenic takes on a new role. Not as a villain, but as a healer. It almost feels wrong to say this, but arsenic, the poison that silenced emperors, shattered families, and floated through Victorian nurseries, can also save lives. Yes, you heard that right. In a small oncology unit in Boston, a young woman lay pale and breathless. She had been diagnosed with a rare and aggressive type of leukemia called acute promyelocytic leukemia, or APL. Standard chemotherapy wasn't working. Her doctors turned to something unexpected, something ancient, something toxic: arsenic trioxide. In carefully controlled doses, this very compound, once a tool of murder, is now a frontline treatment for APL. It doesn't just slow the cancer. In many cases, it cures it. Here's how. Arsenic trioxide forces the cancerous blood cells to grow up, literally. Instead of multiplying endlessly, they mature and self-destruct, allowing healthy cells to take over. And it's not the only time arsenic stepped into the spotlight as medicine. Centuries ago, traditional Chinese medicine used arsenic-based compounds to treat skin diseases. In the 18th and 19th centuries, doctors in Europe prescribed Fowler's solution, a tonic laced with arsenic, to treat everything from asthma to syphilis. Of course, back then, it was more guesswork than science. Now we have precision. Micrograms instead of milligrams, monitored doses, life-saving intent. And that's the strange poetry of science, isn't it? The very substance that once hid in porridge and wallpaper now sits in IV bags, fighting for someone's life. But here's the deeper truth. It's never the thing itself that's evil. It's the way we use it. Poison or cure, it's all in the dose. And speaking of dose, you might be wondering, if we still use arsenic in hospitals, what about the arsenic outside of them? Because up next, we're digging into something that affects millions today, maybe even you. Arsenic in your water, in your soil, maybe even in your rice. We've talked about emperors, porridge, and poisoned wallpaper. But what if I told you arsenic might be in your kitchen right now? No drama, just facts. Arsenic is a naturally occurring element. It's in the earth, the rocks, and yes, sometimes in our drinking water. In places like Bangladesh, India, and even parts of the United States, including Maine, Texas, and California, arsenic levels in groundwater have silently crossed safety thresholds. For millions of people, the very thing they rely on to stay alive may be slowly hurting them. And then there's rice. Rice plants grow in flooded fields, which makes them especially good at absorbing arsenic from the soil and water. In fact, brown rice, often considered the healthier choice, can sometimes contain even more arsenic than white rice, due to the outer layers. It doesn't stop there. Apple juice, baby food, even protein powders made from rice. A 2021 study in the US found detectable levels of inorganic arsenic in several popular food brands marketed to children. But before you panic, here's what you should know. The dose matters. Occasional exposure won't harm most healthy adults. But for children, pregnant women, and people who drink from untreated wells, the risk adds up over time. So what can we do? Filter your water if you're on well supply. Rinse rice thoroughly and cook it with extra water, like pasta. Rotate your grains. Don't rely on rice for every meal. Stay curious. Read labels. Ask questions. Because arsenic isn't just a villain from the past, it's a quiet part of the present, and that's the lesson. Not all threats scream, some just linger. But here's what makes arsenic so unique. It's not done evolving. Because in our final chapter, we ask, if arsenic is everywhere, and sometimes even healing, why is it still the perfect murder weapon? Let's talk about its most chilling quality, being undetectable. So, what have we uncovered? Arsenic killed emperors and tore families apart. It hid inside porridge, wallpaper, and powdered love potions. Then, in a stunning twist, It began saving lives in modern hospitals. And today, it still lurks quietly in water, rice, even baby food. This isn't just a story about poison. It's a story about how danger often wears a harmless face, and how knowledge, real, uncomfortable knowledge, can save us. So what can you do? Check where your water comes from. Rinse your rice. Read the labels on what you give your kids. You don't have to be paranoid, just aware. Because the scariest threats are often the ones we don't see. And arsenic? It's the ultimate reminder that what we don't know can hurt us. If this video made you think, even for a moment, hit that like button. If you have thoughts or questions, drop a comment below. I read everyone. And if you want more stories like this, full of history, mystery, and science with a dark twist, subscribe. There's so much more coming. And finally, if there's one thing to remember from all of this, it's this. Arsenic teaches us that awareness isn't just power. It's protection.